So this was really fun at the time because I remember all the people coming out saying, oh, he did nothing wrong, he didn't break reporting restrictions, he's just trying to tell the truth. You know, he's supporting of the, these poor, victims and, helping them bring to justice. He did nothing of the sort. He did absolutely nothing. He did squat. And if you want to know how close he came to collapsing that trial, we're about to find out. So, Tommy Robinson, how close EDL founder came to collapsing of the Huddersfield grooming gang trial. Exclusive. 5 defence lawyers applied for the jury to be dismissed over Robinson's Facebook Live video. That means they could go off on a technicality. A technicality, by the way, was the last time what happened when Tommy got out of prison. So, there you go. Or shall we call him by his real name, Stephen? So, there is a reporting restriction on this case. I have to be super careful. Tommy Robinson told followers as he broadcast a Facebook Live outside Leeds Crown Court. The anti-Islam activist then spoke for more than an hour about rape jihad gangs and read out allegations against members of a Huddersfield grooming gang, despite knowing a set of 3 linked trials was still underway. This is part 2 of the trial. The jury are making their verdicts now. Robinson correctly stated shortly before his arrest on the 25th of May 2018. I won't be able to share the video with you until the reporting restrictions are lifted, and I don't think that will be possibly for another 6 months. Robinson, whose real name is Stephen Yaxley-Leon, would later claim that he was unaware of the scope of the restriction and did not mean to endanger the grooming trials. But the Independent can now reveal how close he came to causing the cases to collapse. So most of you may remember I made a video about how Stephen owes an apology to the victims of the grooming gang trial. And he's not going to do that. He's not going to do the right thing. And in fact, throughout all of this, he has shown no compassion to any of the victims in this at all, because, as we've said, Robinson doesn't care. This is a good excuse for him to spread his hate speech, essentially. So, 4 days after Robinson was originally jailed for the contempt of court, defence lawyers launched an application to discharge the jury, a move that would have had forced a lengthy retrial or ended the grooming gang case completely. A judge had imposed an order under the Contempt of Court Act that banned reporting on proceedings until the last trial had finished to prevent jurors being swayed by articles about previous cases. Judge Geoffrey Marson jailed Robinson for 13 months for breaching the restriction and imposed a separate ban on reporting proceedings against him that was successfully challenged by the Independent. Robinson was freed in August because of the procedural failings that gave rise to unfairness, but the Court of Appeal ordered him to face a new hearing. Now, 2 High Court judges have found that Robinson had committed contempt of court in 3 separate respects: by breaching the reporting restrictions, filming the video and confronting defendants outside the court. Dame Vera Sharp, president of the Queen Bench Division, said the reports conducted amount to a serious interference with the administration of justice. Court transcripts obtained from the grooming trial by the Independent show that on the 29th of May 2018, Judge Marson told defence lawyers a juror had mentioned Tommy Robinson as they returned for the first day of the deliberations following his imprisonment. Lawyers defending members of the gang then argued it was incontrovertible that jurors had not seen Robinson's live stream, which would prejudice them against their clients. Bunty Batara, a barrister representing rapist Fasim Nadim, I think that's how you say it, said that the video had been viewed 3.5 million times amid an international furore over Robinson's imprisonment and protests in London. In my respectful submission, these circumstances are so unprecedented, it is incontrovertible that when you have 3.5 million hits on the internet, that this information has not come to the attention of the jury. He told the court. It is incontrovertible that the jury have not been spoken to by others. Whether they themselves were looking for the information matters not. He argued that the jury could be biased against the defendants by watching the stream where Robinson talked of hundreds of young girls being gang raped in our country in every town and city by Muslim grooming gangs. He pointed out that several defendants were called Muhammad and urged viewers to look for a common denominator. Defence lawyers representing the 4 other gang members of the grooming gang backed the application. One said that Robinson had listed allegations that were dropped by the Crown Prosecution Service. Following lengthy legal arguments, the judge dismissed the application and refused to question members of the jury on whether they had watched Robinson's video. He said that the juror who mentioned Robinson was told immediately not to say anything to anybody, and that they all had been told not to carry out their own research on the trial. There is no evidence that any of the jurors had seen anything which was streamed on social networks, the judge added. There has been no information put before me from any juror that they do not feel able to abide by their oath, and in my judgment, this is the case where we have to trust the jury. They later convened that all the defendants of the offences, including rape, trafficking for sexual exploitation, and supplying Class A drugs to victims aged between 11 and 17. So, bear in mind, we are told by Stephen that the government is trying to sweep this under the rug, and yet not only were there news reports at the time or when the conviction came out, but the government actually convicted these people. So this deflates his entire original theory that this is, quote, sweeping it under the rug. The third trial was able to go ahead, and in October, the reporting restrictions were lifted following the conviction of 20 men who were given prison sentences totaling 220 years. The gang members lured young girls into what they believed to be genuine relationships before plying them with alcohol or drugs and assaulting them in a campaign of abuse spanning from 2004 to 2011. Robertson claimed that the mainstream media were not reporting the case, but journalists from the Huddersfield Examiner were in court at the time. London's Old Bailey heard that Robinson had read the charges from a BBC News article, and a key part of his defence was the claim that all the information was already in the public domain, despite his claims to expose grooming gangs. When Robinson was brought before the judge on May 28th, 2018, he explained that he had made the reporting restrictions to ensure the integrity of the trials. You are entitled to your views, you are entitled to express them within the law, but you are not entitled to express them until the prohibition was lifted, he said. There has been a significant risk to this trial. Robinson's defence lawyer in the hearing, Matthew Harding, said that he was instructed to give mitigation as opposed to a defence to the contempt. He told Leeds Crown Court Robinson was genuinely remorseful, adding that he didn't set out to flagrantly breach any order. It came a year after Robinson was given a suspended sentence for the contempt of court of another case at Canterbury Crown Court, where he'd been filming inside the building. He alluded to the sentence in his live stream, saying, "I'm walking a thin line because basically the police put a suspended prison sentence on me. If the police can pin anything on me, I'll be going to jail for 3 months. He's now in jail for 2 years. As officers gathered outside Leeds Crown Court and Robinson spotted a judge and lawyers watching him through the window, panic set in. "There's nothing they can do, is there?" he asked his assistants, who were off camera. "You are allowed to do this. In it. I haven't done anything wrong, have I?" The live stream continued as he was arrested on suspicion of the breach of the peace, calling out for a solicitor as he was led away. He will be sentenced this month and faces up to 2 years in prison. So, quite frankly, happy ending to that story. A very happy ending.